Poor student married 66-year-old millionaire man. 48 hours later, she was shocked by what she saw. Rain drummed against the windows of Clara Reyes's apartment, the steady rhythm punctuated by the mechanical wheeze of her brother's oxygen machine. Clara sat at the kitchen table, sorting pills into her mother's weekly organizer while simultaneously reviewing notes for her psychology midterm. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, evidence of too many double shifts and sleepless nights. "Mija, you should rest," Elena Reyes called softly from the couch where she lay beneath a patchwork quilt, her body thin and fragile from years of lupus treatments. "After I finish this, Mama," Claire replied, forcing brightness into her voice. At 19, she'd become adept at hiding exhaustion. Community college student by day, waitress by night, and caregiver in every moment between. Clara carried these responsibilities with quiet determination. In the corner of their small living room, 16-year-old Miguel dozed fitfully, his breathing labored despite the oxygen. Cystic fibrosis had stolen his adolescence. The transplant that might save him remained frustratingly out of reach, buried beneath insurance denials and endless wait lists. Clara's phone vibrated against the table. Unknown number. She almost declined it, assuming another debt collector, but something made her answer. "Miss Reyes." The voice was deep, cultured, with the confidence of someone accustomed to authority. "This is Richard Thorne. I'd like to discuss a matter of mutual benefit. Could you come to Thornhill Estate tomorrow at 2? Clara's hand tightened around the phone. Everyone in Grayford knew Richard Thorne, the reclusive tech millionaire whose company had once been the town's largest employer before a mysterious collapse 8 years ago. His name still adorned the hospital wing where her mother received treatment. "May I ask what this is regarding, Mr. Thorne?" she asked, professional despite her surprise. "It's a private matter best discussed in person," he replied. "A car will collect you at 1:30. I assure you it will be worth your time." Curiosity warred with suspicion. "How did you get my number?" A pause. "I have resources, Miss Reyes. Tomorrow at 2? After a moment's hesitation, Clara agreed. Any opportunity, no matter how strange, deserved consideration when her family's needs were so dire. The following afternoon, a sleek black sedan delivered Clara to wrought iron gates that opened onto a winding driveway. Thornhill Estate emerged. From behind ancient oaks, a sprawling stone mansion with Gothic touches, its windows gleaming like dark eyes against pale limestone. Despite the region's drought, the surrounding gardens remained lush and immaculate. A silver-haired housekeeper greeted Clara at the door. "Mrs. Winters," she introduced herself with a crisp nod, "Mr. Thorne is expecting you." Clara followed her through marble hallways adorned with artwork that probably cost more than her family's medical debt. The house felt oppressively quiet, as if sound itself was unwelcome. Richard Thorne awaited her in a study lined with leather-bound books. At 66, he remained imposing. Tall and straight-backed, with silver hair precisely cut, and a face that might have been handsome if not for its coldness. He didn't rise when Clara entered, merely gestured to the chair opposite his massive mahogany desk. "Miss Reyes," he said, his gray eyes assessing her with unsettling thoroughness. "Thank you for coming." "Mr. Thorne," Clara replied, meeting his gaze directly. She smoothed her simple blue dress, the nicest thing she owned, and refused to be intimidated by his obvious wealth. "How can I help you?" He studied her for a long moment. "I understand your family is in considerable financial distress. Medical bills primarily, though there are also mortgage arrears and student loans." Clara stiffened. "That's private information." "Nothing is truly private in a town this size." He slid a folder across the desk. "Your mother's lupus treatments, $43,000 outstanding. Your brother's cystic fibrosis care, $156,000, with an estimated $750,000 for the transplant he needs. 3 missed mortgage payments. Student loans deferred but accumulating interest. Clara's cheeks burned with humiliation and anger. Why are you tracking my family's finances? Because I have a proposition. Richard's expression remained impassive. I need a wife, Miss Reyes, not for love or physical companionship, but for appearance. My brother is dying of pancreatic cancer, and his final wish is to see me settled. He believes I've been alone too long since Eleanor passed. Clara blinked, certain she'd misheard. You want to marry me? A contract marriage, he clarified. 2 years. I'll pay all your family's medical expenses, past, present, and future. I'll clear your debts, fund your education completely, and provide a monthly stipend of $10,000. Your brother will receive his transplant at the Mayo Clinic within 3 months. The room seemed to tilt slightly. Clara gripped the arms of her chair. And what would I have to do? Live here. Accompany me to necessary functions. Maintain the appearance of a contented wife. His tone was matter-of-fact, as if discussing a business merger rather than marriage. You would have your own suite of rooms. I require no physical intimacy. And after 2 years? We divorce amicably. You'll receive a settlement of $2 million, plus continued medical coverage for your family for 10 years. The sum was staggering, enough to transform her family's lives completely. Yet the arrangement felt surreal, possibly predatory. Why me? Clara asked, her voice steadier than she felt. You could hire an actress or find someone from your social circle. Something flickered across Richard's face, so quickly Clara almost missed it. You're intelligent, presentable, and discreet. Your academic record is impressive despite your circumstances, and your situation makes you motivated. You mean desperate? I mean practical. He extended a thick document. This is the contract. Take it home. Review it with a lawyer if you wish, though I assure you it's quite thorough. I need your answer by Friday. Clara accepted the contract, its weight seeming to anchor her to this strange reality. Does your brother know this marriage would be arranged? Richard's expression hardened slightly. My brother's condition has affected his memory. He'll simply be pleased I'm no longer alone. 3 days later, after sleepless nights weighing her options, Clara signed the contract. What choice did she have? Her brother's condition was deteriorating. Her mother's treatments weren't working. The alternative was watching her family crumble while drowning in debt. What she couldn't know was that Richard Thorne had chosen her with surgical precision, and that his reasons had nothing to do with his brother's wishes. The wedding took place in Richard's study. A sterile affair with a judge, 2 witnesses from Richard's staff, and Clara in a simple white dress purchased from a consignment shop. No family attended. Richard had insisted on privacy, and Clara had told her mother only that she'd found a position as a live-in companion to a wealthy widower. The lie tasted bitter, but she rationalized that the truth would only worry her family. Richard slid a platinum band onto her finger without emotion. Clara noticed he continued to wear his first wedding ring on his right hand. That evening, Mrs. Winters showed Clara to her suite, a beautiful arrangement of rooms decorated in cream and gold, with a sitting area, bedroom, and private bath larger than her family's entire apartment. Mr. Thorne dines at 7 precisely, Mrs. Winters explained, opening curtains to reveal a view of immaculate gardens. He expects punctuality. And where does Mr. Thorne sleep? Clara asked, trying to orient herself in this new reality. Mrs. Winters' expression remained carefully neutral. The master suite is in the east wing. Your rooms are here in the west. Mr. Thorne values his privacy. Does he have many visitors? Mr. Thorne conducts business meetings here occasionally. Otherwise, no. Mrs. Winters hesitated, then added, "The staff has been instructed to address you as Mrs. Thorne. Mr. Thorne prefers to maintain appearances even in private." The mansion operated with mechanical precision. Breakfast appeared at 8, though. Richard never joined her. Clara spent mornings exploring the grounds or reading in the vast library. Lunch was served at 1, dinner at 7, the only time she reliably saw her husband. Their conversations were formal, detached. Richard asked about her studies, which he'd arranged for her to continue online. He inquired after her family, whose medical care he monitored with disturbing thoroughness. But he never spoke of himself, his work, or his past. "I'd like to visit my family this weekend," Clara said during their third dinner together. Richard cut his steak with precise movements. "That won't be possible yet. Your brother's transfer to Mayo Clinic is being arranged. Once he's settled, you may visit." "I should be there for the transfer." "The contract specifies that your residence is here," Richard replied coolly. "Your family is receiving the best care money can provide. Isn't that what matters?" Clara swallowed her frustration. When a shadow crossed Richard's face. "James is at Sloan Kettering in New York. His condition makes travel impossible. We'll video call him next week." The staff moved through the house like ghosts, efficient, silent, watching. Clara caught whispers. That stopped when she entered rooms. Gardeners paused their work to track her movements across the lawn. Even the cook, a warm-faced woman named Martine, seemed to measure her words carefully. "Has Mr. Thorne always lived alone?" Clara asked her, one morning while Martine prepared bread dough. Martine's hands stilled momentarily. "Not always, Mrs. Thorne. Please call me Clara." "Mr. Thorne prefers formality." Martine resumed kneading. "There was Mrs. Eleanor, of course, and before that, his parents. The Thornes have owned this estate for generations." "What happened to Eleanor?" Martine's eyes darted to the doorway. "An accident, 8 years ago now. She fell down the main staircase. Were you working here then?" "Yes, most of us were." Martine shaped the dough with practiced movements. Mrs. Eleanor was well liked. She had a kindness about her. Clara found Eleanor everywhere. In the closed-off rooms she glimpsed through, partially open doors in the gardens designed to her specifications in the portrait that hung in the main hall. Eleanor Thorne had been beautiful, with dark hair and eyes that seemed to follow Clara. One evening, Clara asked Richard directly, "Tell me about Eleanor." Richard's knife paused over his steak. "My wife is not a topic of discussion." "I'm your wife now," Clara said quietly. "On paper." His voice was ice. "This arrangement works best with boundaries, Clara. I suggest you respect them." That night, unable to sleep, Clara wandered the silent halls. A light shone from beneath Richard's study door. She heard voices, Richard's and another man's, their tone urgent. "She doesn't suspect anything," Richard was saying. "Everything is proceeding as planned." "And if she discovers the truth?" the other man asked. "She won't. By the time she could, it will be too late." Clara retreated silently, heart pounding. The mansion wasn't just a home. It was a stage, and she was playing a role in a production whose plot remained hidden from her. The video call with Richard's brother never materialized. Instead, Richard announced the following week that James had taken a turn for the worse and was no longer lucid. Clara's suspicions deepened, but she maintained her composure. If Richard was playing a game, she needed to understand the rules before making any moves. Meanwhile, her brother had been transferred to Mayo Clinic as promised. The reports from her mother were cautiously optimistic. Miguel had been moved up the transplant list, and new treatments were stabilizing his condition. Her mother's own care had been upgraded to include experimental therapies showing promising results. The golden cage was working its purpose, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the price would be higher than she'd agreed to pay. 3 months into their marriage, Clara found the key. She'd been searching Richard's study while he attended a business meeting in Dallas. His desk drawers yielded nothing interesting, just business documents and household accounts. But when she ran her hand along the underside of the desk, her fingers found a small compartment. Inside lay a single brass key. Clara had noticed a locked door on the 3rd floor. A narrow hallway that Mrs. Winters had casually mentioned was just storage. The key fit perfectly. The room beyond was frozen in time. Dust motes danced in the beam of light from the doorway, settling on furniture draped in sheets. Clara pulled back the coverings to reveal a woman's domain, a writing desk, bookshelves, a chaise lounge positioned to catch the morning light. Eleanor's sanctuary. Clara moved carefully through the space, touching nothing at first. Then she noticed the desk drawer was slightly ajar. Inside lay a leather-bound journal and a stack of letters. The journal was Eleanor's, its pages filled with increasingly disturbed entries. April the 15th, 2015. Richard is obsessed with the Reyes situation. He talks of nothing else. I've told him to let it go. Business failures happen, but he's convinced Antonio Reyes deliberately sabotaged the Mexico deal. April 29th, 2015. Richard barely sleeps. He pores over the company records night after night, searching for evidence. I'm worried about his health, his state of mind. May 30th, 2015. Richard has hired investigators. He's tracking the Reyes family's every move. It's becoming frightening. When I suggested he seek therapy, he accused me of undermining him. June 12, 2015. Found Richard in his study at 3 a.m., staring at photos of the Reyes family. He's particularly focused on the daughter, Clara. Says she's the spitting image of her father. The hatred in his voice terrified me. June 18, 2015. We argued terribly tonight. I told Richard I would leave if he didn't stop this vendetta. He said I was betraying him, just like Antonio did. He grabbed my arm so hard it bruised. This isn't the man I married. The final entry was dated July 2015, 3 days before Eleanor's accident. I've found the evidence. Richard falsified documents to frame Antonio. The company's failure wasn't sabotage, it was Richard's own mismanagement. He made risky investments, ignored warnings, then manufactured evidence against Antonio when everything collapsed. I'm taking these papers to the authorities tomorrow. God forgive me for what this will do to our marriage, but I cannot be complicit in destroying an innocent man's life. Clara's hands trembled as she set down the journal. Antonio Reyes, her father. He'd worked for Thorne Technologies International division before being fired for alleged corporate espionage. The stress had triggered his heart attack 6 months later. The letters confirmed everything. Correspondence between Eleanor and a lawyer, copies of the documents she'd found, even a draft of a statement she planned to give police. Clara was piecing it all together when the door creaked behind her. I see you've been busy, Richard said, his voice dangerously soft. Clara turned slowly. You blamed my father for your company's failure. You framed him. Antonio Reyes was a thief and a liar. The only liar is you. Clara held up Eleanor's journal. Your wife knew the truth. That's why she died, isn't it? Not an accident. Richard's face hardened. Eleanor was emotional, confused. She fell down the stairs while we were arguing. You pushed her. I did not touch her, Richard snapped, a flash of genuine anger breaking through his controlled facade. She was running from me, hysterical. I followed her to reason with her, and she missed a step. And now you've brought me here. Why? Revenge? A cold smile touched Richard's lips. Justice comes in many forms, Clara. Your father destroyed my company and my marriage. Now I control his daughter's life and his family's welfare. Poetic, don't you think? You're sick, Clara whispered. Perhaps, but I'm also thorough. Richard stepped closer. Those documents won't help you. The statute of limitations has expired on the fraud allegations, and you have no proof regarding Eleanor's death. Then why keep all this locked away? Sentiment. Perhaps. He extended his hand. Now, return what doesn't belong to you, and we'll continue our arrangement. Unless you prefer I withdraw my financial support from your family? Clara handed over the journal and letters, her mind racing. Richard might control her family's lifeline, but he'd made a critical mistake. He'd revealed his game too soon. That night, Clara called the only person she trusted, her college friend Zach, a law student interning at the district attorney's office. I need your help, she said quietly into her phone, and it has to be completely secret. What's going on, Clara? Zach asked, concern evident in his voice. Everyone's wondering where you disappeared to. I'm married, she said, the words still strange on her tongue. To Richard Thorne. What? To Richard Thorne. How? Why? It's complicated, Clara interrupted, and dangerous. I need legal advice, but nothing that would create a paper trail. This sounds serious, Clara. It is. Life or death serious. She took a deep breath. Can you meet me tomorrow? There's a coffee shop in Westfield, the next town over. 3 o'clock. The following day, Clara told Richard she needed to shop for clothes appropriate for an upcoming charity function. He assigned a driver, whom she easily lost in the department store before taking a bus to Westfield. Zach was waiting, his expression a mixture of concern and confusion. Clara told him everything. The contract marriage, Eleanor's journal, Richard's admission of framing her father. This is insane, Zach said when she finished. You need to get out of there. I can't, Clara replied. My family depends on his money. Miguel's transplant, my mother's treatments. He'll cut everything off if I leave. Then we need leverage. Zach tapped his fingers thoughtfully. The fraud allegations might be time-barred, but if he's still engaged in financial for the next 2 months, Clara played the perfect wife. She smiled at Richard across the dinner table, accompanied him to charity functions, and never mentioned Eleanor or her father again. She even initiated conversations about his business interests, expressing admiration for his financial acumen. Richard seemed pleased by her apparent acceptance of their arrangement. He became more talkative, less guarded. He began including her in business dinners, introducing her as my wife, the future psychologist. Meanwhile, Clara built her case methodically. She photographed financial records left carelessly visible in Richard's study. She recorded conversations where he alluded to using their marriage to shield assets. She discovered Richard was using their marriage to transfer properties and investments that were under investigation by the Securities and Exchange Commission. Zach connected her with a former FBI forensic accountant who reviewed her evidence. This is textbook fraud, the accountant confirmed. He's using your marriage to create a shield for assets that should be frozen pending investigation. Clara also found the original contract Richard had signed with her father, with clauses that differed significantly from what Antonio had believed he was agreeing to. Richard had digitized all his records, but kept paper originals in a fireproof safe whose combination Clara had memorized after watching him open it. Most damning of all, Clara discovered Richard's brother James had died 2 years earlier, long before her marriage. The medical updates Richard occasionally mentioned were complete fabrications. When everything was ready, Clara waited for Richard to leave for a business trip to Singapore. Then she called the authorities. They arrived within hours. SEC investigators, local police, even FBI agents specializing in financial crimes. The mansion swarmed with officials collecting evidence, interviewing staff, securing computers. Mrs. Winters found Clara in the library as agents boxed documents. "You knew," she said quietly, "about Mrs. Eleanor." Clara nodded. "Did you?" The housekeeper's eyes filled with tears. "We all suspected. But suspecting isn't knowing, and jobs are hard to find at my age." "I understand," Clara said gently, "but now you have a chance to tell the truth." When Richard returned 3 days later, agents met his car at the gate. Clara watched from the library window as they led him away in handcuffs. His eyes found hers across the distance, not angry, but almost admiring. He nodded once, acknowledging her victory. The legal proceedings took months. Richard was charged with multiple counts of fraud, tax evasion, and coercion. Clara testified against him, her testimony strengthened by the evidence she'd gathered and by Mrs. Winters, who finally revealed she'd witnessed Richard's argument with Eleanor the night she died. He followed her up the stairs. Mrs. Winters testified. She was crying, saying she was going to the police. He grabbed her arm. She pulled away and lost her balance. He could have caught her. He was close enough, but he just watched her fall. In the end, Richard accepted a plea deal, 15 years in federal prison and forfeiture of most assets. But in a final twist that Clara never anticipated, he signed Thornhill Estate over to her. "He left this for you," Zach said, handing her an envelope after the sentencing. Inside was a brief letter in Richard's precise handwriting. "Clara, you've proven yourself more formidable than your father ever was. Perhaps that's why I chose you. I recognize something of myself in your determination. I underestimated you. As Eleanor always said, I underestimated everyone. The house is yours. My final acknowledgement that you've won our game. Do with it what you will." Richard Clara sold Thornhill Estate to a hotel developer. The proceeds, combined with the settlement from annulling her marriage, provided enough to secure the best medical care for her family and her own future. She could have stayed in Grayford, but the town held too many shadows. Instead, she followed a dream she'd never dared voice, moving to Croatia, where her grandmother had been born. She found a small stone house in a coastal village called Rovinj, its windows opening to the Adriatic Sea. There, surrounded by the scent of lavender and salt air, Clara began again. She enrolled in university, studying international law with a focus on corporate accountability. On weekends, she swam in the clear blue waters and learned to sail from an elderly fisherman who called her Mala Lavica, Little Lioness. Her mother and brother visited when they could, their health improving under proper care. Miguel's transplant had been successful. He now breathed easily for the first time in his life. Elena's lupus had gone into remission with the experimental treatments Richard's money had paid for, perhaps the only good to come from their arrangement. Sometimes Clara thought about Richard in his prison cell, wondering if he regretted his obsession with revenge. More often, she thought of Eleanor, who had tried to do the right thing and paid with her life. On her desk sat a small framed photo, not of Thornhill or her time there, but of her father, smiling and unburdened. Next to it lay a journal where Clara wrote her own story, not as Richard's wife or Antonio's daughter, but simply as herself. The past no longer defined her. For the first time in her life, Clara Reyes was free. One evening, as sunset painted the Adriatic gold, Clara received an email from Zach. Richard Thorne had died in prison, a heart attack according to officials. Attached was a final letter he'd written to her, delivered through his attorney. "Clara, by the time you read this, I will be gone. The doctors give me weeks, not months. Perhaps there is justice in that. My heart failing me as your father's failed, Him. I want you to know that in the end, I came to respect you. You beat me at my own game, something Eleanor always tried and failed to do. In you, I see what my life might have been had I chosen differently. There is one final truth you deserve. Your father was innocent. My hatred blinded me to my own failures. I destroyed a good man and lost a good woman because I couldn't face my own inadequacy. Live well, Clara Reyes. You've earned it. Richard, Clara closed the email and stepped onto her terrace. Below, waves crashed against ancient stones. Above, stars emerged in the deepening blue. She took a deep breath of salt air and felt the last weight lift